All right, welcome everybody. Nobody wanted this, nobody asked for it, but we're doing it anyway. Welcome to the Stormbreakers Weather Report, the podcast where we give Marvel Crisis Protocol a forecast. This is the second episode, and we've got a new little lineup here. Uh, as always, it's Devin, Devloaf on Longshanks, and today with me we've got Dustin from last time, uh,
Howdy.
the reliable realtor. And we've got somebody new. We got Ian. Um, what is your Longshanks, Ian? I'm spacing it.
It's science, brother.
Science, brother. Yeah.
Yep.
Want to tell us who you are for people that don't know you?
Yep. I'm one of the saltiest players in the Pacific Northwest, but I am hopefully self-aware enough about it to apologize every time. But it only goes so far. So I'm very thankful for my friends. But yeah, I don't know. We've been playing MCP with the local group, and our local group started about I think it was like 2021. Started with Brotherhood. The first set that came out was like Jugs and Rogue, and then went from Brotherhood to Webs, and most of the time I play Shield, and I really like Scenario Shield, not necessarily gunline stuff. Also, I'm kind of on the same kick as Devin, where we refuse to play meta stuff, even though it's absolutely the right call, but then we still complain about it. So that's me.
Yeah, I definitely have this back and forth in my mind where I know what's the right thing to do. I know what the meta thing to do is, but I just can't bring myself to do it.
Well, it's like you never know if you win if it was due to you or just because you're playing Thor 2, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so we got a couple things to go over this week. Um, Dustin wasn't with us, but myself and Ian and quite a few other Stormbreakers went to an event that we had today. It was an unrated tournament, kind of a classic, a quote unquote fun tournament that was put together with a white elephant and a don't like a food fund, a donation food fund that we went to today, and we all made like goofy, stupid, weird lists. Like for my thing that I did, I took Spider Foes. It was my second, third, and fourth game of Spider Foes, and I took a list that brought nothing but tricks and traps characters, and and if you don't know what those are, these are reactives for when people move around you. You can reactively use a superpower and do damage to them, and sometimes it has cool effects. Dustin, I know you didn't make it with us, but did you have something neat planned?
Um, no, I mean to be honest, like I'm kind of in that same boat. Not so much that I switched off playing meta stuff, but I just in general don't play super meta. Um, Wakanda was probably the closest I got because I started playing it before M'Baku came out, and then Spirit of Wakanda and Advanced R&D came out, and it's like, well, I'm in affiliation, so I'm gonna play the good thing. Um, but just playing what I like. I was gonna bring Web Warriors today
Okay.
because I've just been practicing them. I enjoy them a lot. Um, I've only gotten like I don't know somewhere between 10 and 15 games with them. So just trying to learn the ropes with them as much as possible. But because I've been sick, I didn't want to get other people sick, so I
Fair,
decided
yeah,
to
yeah,
stay.
fair. I think it would have been an interesting game to see tricks and traps everywhere versus spiders in a team that cares a lot about placing.
Yeah.
I just remember when Dustin was calling all web players cowards,
I
which
mean, it's
is
still
is
true.
still true, but
Yeah.
but now he's one of us at least, so
He's trying
Well,
it out and he likes it.
I
It appears.
I think that like
it's fun.
the thing about it is like I don't particularly enjoy removal of dice as a win condition. And there at certain points have been affiliations where that's kind of what they do. I think dice should be at least a fairly relevant part of the game. So I just prefer fighty teams.
Well, and should also say, I guess Devin said that we all played goofy rosters. That's not quite true. I think you played yours, and then we had a guy play basically oops all rapid fire. Most of us played stuff I think we still liked, but we kind of had some.
Yeah, maybe I
I
missed
hate
the
to keep
mark.
using the word meta police,
Y-
but I
Yeah,
think there was a bit of a common understanding of what other people would enjoy playing against.
yeah.
So I don't think anyone had too many feels bads just based off of like what they knew they were up against. There were some Draculas, but not like Dracula Cabal kind of stuff.
My understanding of the tournament was don't be sweaty. Like,
Yeah.
I think the
Right.
only thing that was mentioned, like don't bring this, was Asgard.
Yep, yep.
Were there any Asgard players today?
No, but there were Asgard characters in other affiliations, which is not as bad. But it wasn't. No one brought Thor 2 that I know of.
Oh, really?
Yes. We had
Okay.
like maybe some criminal Loki. I don't know. I'm not sure if that's even
I,
true.
I know that Corey brought Jane, Mighty Thor.
That's right. Yeah.
Uh,
But like out of affiliation is
yeah, and I
not
mean, he
so
used
bad,
it
maybe.
in Steve, like under Steve 1, which is basically an affiliation for every character in the
Eh,
game. Um, but yeah, like the point was at the tournament, or at least the as you called the meta police, was that don't bring your try hard list. Bring something that you'll have fun with,
right.
and you're gonna go up against other people who brought their fun thing. Like obviously Ian's not gonna bring his shield because that's what you main and you're really good at it. I'm not gonna bring my Midnight Suns for the same reason. Uh, Dustin, you can really bring anything because you're not good.
No, it's that Spirit of Wakanda art. Yeah, it's fine now. It's fine. Totally good.
Spirit's kind of died down since the nerf, and really, occasionally you'll see people bring Wong with the passive power and then activate Spirit to give everybody power. But it's like you're kind of putting yourself in a hole when you do that, and a character now. So is it enough?
Yeah. Um, if you want the turn one play, like if you get a certain crisis matchup that you really like the turn one play, maybe. Um, I personally like Wong anyway. I think Wakanda can do well with the second two threat. Just because sometimes you want to go wide. Uh, but yeah, I mean, Spirit on its own can be rough, but Wakanda generally lacks any sort of power generation other than getting hit. So two power is a lot to them.
And that's kind of hard to.
Other
That's a kind of hard take to take though, because there's a lot of Wakanda characters, and like King T generates power just as fast as Ghost Rider does with his like, if someone else gets hit, he gets a power thing.
Yeah, that's true. King T is kind of the exception, because he will have 10 power, and then you'll like spender, superpower spender, and then you'll be back at 10 next turn. Um,
I think
but
it's maybe just more that Wakanda can spend power basically all the time, whether it's Shuri rerolls or Panther's just Mantle Panther or his
yeah,
added defense or whatever. Like they got there's easy ways to dump all of their stuff.
yeah, and if you get Shuri behind on power, then she really loses a lot of her um, application in the game. So just getting that power is really good. Plus, if you're playing King T, you're not playing OG Panther, which he's a top model in the affiliation. It's a really hard choice.
Yeah, I mean, usually when I see Wakanda, it's Panther, right? And M'Baku's kind of like a hardly ever seen. Sometimes he gets in the list and they'll play him out of necessity, but just because Panther doesn't make sense. But I just don't really see a lot of edge cases where Panther doesn't make sense over like M'Baku makes sense over Panther, or M'Baku makes
So
sense over King T.
because the roster's not very deep, M'Baku is almost always in the roster. He's a decent four threat, and he's got some cool tactics interactions. Um, but for King T, uh, again, you kind of want to build your list around him
Yeah,
rather than splash him in.
yeah, he really cares about those pushes, and sure he
Yeah,
does that really well. And unfortunately, his counterpart, Black Panther Four Threat, is perfect for his leadership, but you can't take them both, which is a
yeah,
real shame.
yeah. Um, I mean, I have fun with both of them. If I was gonna play Wakanda and I wanted to do the best Wakanda, I think Four Threat Panther is the way to go. But King T's a super fun, super killy model, so I'm never gonna be mad at somebody for choosing him.
That makes sense. That makes sense. All right, let's focus on this goofy turn. I say that with quotations marks around it, but let's go back to this
Fun.
goofy tournament. Yeah, fun tournament. Yeah, that's a better way to say it.
Did
You
you just forget what fun was?
yeah, sometimes we forget how to have fun in this game and we focus on winning. And it's nice to take a step back and go to a tournament that's not focused on just winning because none of us in the Stormbreakers really do it that well.
Well, and you should also mention we had forced one shot cards on every
Yeah,
single
that's a
match as
good
well
point.
too.
I forgot to mention that. The tournament also had forced one shots, which are
And
modifi
multiple.
modifications to normal crisis at every table, and not just one, typically two, if not three, to the point that I played two different games, one at 25 threat and another at 14 threat, which are threats that are unheard of and impossible to reach in the current game state.
Hang on,
Um,
how did you get to 25 threat?
yeah, so this is interesting. I had two different one shots, one that was a +3 and one that was a +2, and we pulled a 20 threat mission.
Wow.
Um,
Yep.
and it was really cool to play because basically it was Infinity Formula and scrolls. And we ended up with a 16 threat versus 15 threat side of the B map. And then on the other side was a 9 threat versus a 10 threat. So we basically had two different games going on at the
Mm.
same time on each side of the B map. And I think like one or two characters ended up rotating.
Okay, so this is derailing a bit,
Go,
but
go ahead.
real quick, best affiliation for 25 threat.
Hellfire,
It
probably,
it's
right?
gotta be spiders or hellfire, right? The biggest benefits out of this is going wide.
Yeah, I think it'd be a team that has a lot of low threat options and a leadership that uh, is not limited to once per turn or a certain situation. Just something that is applicable almost all the time.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
some of them were like nuts because I think one of the ones on those was high octane, which is the car, right?
Yep,
So
yep.
maybe it changes up if you've got Mysterio all of a sudden driving a car.
That is such a fun one
It
shot.
is. I love the
It's,
one shot. And for those of you
it's
that don't
so good.
know, the one shot high octane essentially you add one or more cars to the battlefield, and what you can do, just like interacting with a token, an extract or any interact, you pay one power, you move the car long, so front to back, just like you would move a model, and you can bend the long movement in any direction you want, but it has to go the full movement. And you place the car. If it runs over anybody, they take a damage.
One, it's
And
weird because it's like the measuring tool, right? So it's actually kind of skinny.
yeah, yeah, it's a small path that it travels. Uh, but if it goes over someone, they take a damage, and then after it moves, the character that interacted with it places within one of the car, so you get a long move, a car size, and then a place on top of it. So you can literally go from one B to the other side
Easy.
easy, and you don't have to drop your extract tokens when you do so, so you can absolutely like run away. Like we often see like Black Cat or spiders doing. Anybody can do this. Uh,
Yeah, I think that's a super cool design space. One of the reasons why I started playing Brotherhood when I got into the game was Magneto interacts with the board, and that's a pretty rare thing other than throws. So I wonder if in the upcoming Crisis updates they're gonna have something that's in that direction. Maybe not the same thing, but where terrain becomes more relevant.
that would be pretty cool if the crisis somehow involved the terrain.
I
Uh,
could definitely see like more one shots too, because like that vibranium heist, they kind of changed the rules a little bit with terrain too, but they're pretty. I don't. I don't think they've been anywhere close as far as changing one of those kind of core rules and features of the games, other than like rules on cards, whether it's missions or characters. It'd be super interesting to see, but I'm curious. It's already kind of crazy for them to balance like however
Yeah.
many characters there are, plus missions, and then throw in like also fluctuating terrain stuff. It'd be awesome to see though.
Yeah, I would love to see something that the crisis involving terrain, or even just if the crisis said, hey, you need to add this terrain to play this crisis, so like something else gets added on top of it, or like the extract has to be inside of a car and that car moves around or something. I don't know, it'd be kind of cool, like
Well, and there were
thematically
some
cool.
of those one shots. The car probably would break everything if it was a
Oh yeah,
regular feature, even though it's
absolutely.
incredibly fun.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
other stuff like the trash cans or even like the Daily Bugle. And the other part is too, like it's all you all give bonuses, but that stuff gets destroyed and thrown super quick anyways.
yeah,
That
yeah,
maybe
absolutely.
it's actually not as impactful as we think.
One of the things on that map that I wanted to bring up because it was kind of crazy was so I had a two one shots that made it a +5. One of them is called Unlimited Power, which adds a Hydra generator, and the other one that was a +3 is called Trick or Treat, and that one's from Dracula's box. It was like a special one. Basically, things explode and they drop these little tokens that you can heal yourself or get power off of. But the unlimited power one's kind of interesting. Um, so the Hydra generator, you stand within one of these things, you can interact with it. You don't have to spend any power to do so. But if you do spend power, you can spend up to 10, and you're rolling 10 dice minus the amount of power that you spend. For each crit for each crit, wild, or hit in the roll, minus, whatever. So say you spent 5 power, you're rolling 5 dice, you take a damage. If you're not dazed after all of that, when you finish your current turn, your character doesn't get an activated token.
It's pretty
That
high risk and
It
super high
it is
reward.
it is absolutely high risk, high reward. But if you think about characters like that just generate a bunch of power and have nothing to do with it, like rapid fire with the goofy rapid fire list that was
Yeah,
going
a
on,
Mystique or something that's loaded up and
could
you're
totally
not
take
injured or
advantage
something.
of that and just get
see
four
my
builders.
my mind goes to big characters like Immortal Hulk,
Yeah,
because he can really spend like 3 power and still come out of that pretty fine.
yeah, yeah. So that's kind of what my opponent did. He took She-Hulk on that map, interacted, didn't pay any power, took 6 damage, and then got to activate twice that round. Which
Hmm.
it was kind of neither here nor there because what ended up happening is if the 6 damage had not been taken previously, she would not have dazed to then activate another round. So he got an extra turn early, which ended up taking an extra turn late or an extra activation out later in the game. So I don't feel like it was worth it for him at that point.
I feel like
Makes sense.
extra activation stuff is always kind of tricky because, you mentioned, I was doing Brotherhood, and part of what I've been doing is just I want to jam Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch just because it's fun and try to get difficult to please off all the time.
Yeah,
And a
yeah.
lot of times, most of that's like, well, I got an extra activation, but either I throw priority back to my opponent, or it's just to like let Magneto like move once. There's been a few times where it's been like absolutely like backbreaking, but that and like I don't know what is it, first of the mutants or whatever Apocalypse's card is that
Oh, the
lets me
first one?
reactivate. I
Yeah,
haven't
he's
seen that enough to see like to know how good or how much mileage people get out of it, but it's weird because like getting a new activation does seem like really, really good. But it's
yeah.
also weird to think that like stopping other people's activations is probably like way more powerful in my
Oh yeah,
opinion. But
absolutely. There was like a hubbub about mind transfer from Emma Frost in the recent
right,
TTS league where just like the perfect positioning and the movement of one character allowed Emma Frost to activate another one, which basically ended the game. So it can be super impactful and to activate another character, but the double activation, you're right, is it's real tricky because you're usually giving up something to do it. You have to force yourself into it. some sort of jam to make it happen. Like you're difficult to please, they have to do a specific thing. You did it in a recent
Well,
game versus me, and you had to drop a token to hopefully get a token, right? With
Right.
Quicksilver on intrusions.
so
Yep.
in Magic the Gathering, there's a term called win more, and I think that's where a lot of these things fall into. Because if you're winning, there are spells that will put you ahead even more, but won't win you the game. And so for difficult to please, I think you have to daze a character with Scarlet Witch
Yeah.
and steal an extract, and like that's just you're already doing two really good things, and so
Good
you're just
point.
gonna win more if you do difficult
Yeah.
to please.
And that's specific for that one. As far as like apocalypses or this one shot that Devin's talking about, maybe it's better if the conditions are actually kind of easier, or
I've
like
seen
when you need them, when you actually when they're actually worth something. You know?
Yeah, I've seen Apocalypse as one used competitively a few times in games, in like my Lunch Meat matches or whatever. But usually, what the ones that have really got me is the people that don't use it aggressively, and they'll wait till like round four, round five when the game's about to close out, and maybe there's a character that just doesn't have an extract or something, and he needs to save the game or flip the game at the very end. Just killing a character that's not holding anything to give Apocalypse that extra activation can be huge.
I mean, yeah, hard to say because like you'll often hear tactic cards. If you can wait till later in the game when there's only like half the pieces on the board, they're more impactful than anyways. But still gonna
That's fair.
completely depend on situation and timing.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, so that my games were pretty crazy. We had first game against Apocalypse with my tricks and traps. Uh I got some really cool interactions where so I took every character in my list, the whole 10 had a trick or like a way to damage you for moving, a kill box or a tricks and traps, like anything like that. And first game went up against Apocalypse, uh, Apocalypse, Wolverine, Archangel, and Psylocke. Um, Mutant Madmen. So we had Apocalypse and Wolverine on one side. We had Psylocke and Archangel on the other side. And man, the real turning point for this game is Wolverine with 5 health left, um, healthy, mind you, five health left, charges in with his the best at what I can do, and all three of my characters, Rocket, Mysterio, and I forget who was the third one on that side. They all tricks and trap. It was Electro. That's who it was. They all do tricks and traps and do 5 damage to just cut his whole activation out, like essentially winning me that side because Apocalypse already went. And and then like it just kind of spiraled from there. Once we got that advantage, because not only did he charge in, and he was gonna flip my mutant madmen, but he had an extract on him, so he just handed it to us. Uh, it was it was wild.
Did
Uh,
he need to do that for a shot to win the game, or was it just like
Absolutely not. This was early game.
okay?
Yeah, yeah. Wolverine doesn't have like he could probably save up for his Berserker Barrage, but in a matchup where Mysterio can tricks and traps him and move away, or Electro can tricks and traps him, and Rocket can, so they can all do it. Wolverine has a lot of places in his kit, and he has a lot of like forced movement that he has to do. Not to mention he has to be within range two unless he's saving up for his Berserker Barrage.
Yeah.
It's just not a good matchup for him at all. Apocalypse, on the
So
other hand, totally wrecked that side when he got a chance to. But there was another one where we had him like 3 wounds left. He did a similar thing where he used the famine jump, and we dazed him as well. So it's just like those little extra points where they're like, I have to move to be in range, but I also don't want to be really like disincentivized moving and capitalized on it.
interesting.
Yeah, it was cool.
When does it make sense for a character to move into you? Because like I get the game plan. Like you obviously are punishing people for getting close and ending a movement into you, but your opponent can't just back off the whole game.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There. I think you just have to weigh the odds of me rolling crits and wilds when you're coming in.
And
Um,
try and get like single activations so you're not going into three at once.
yeah, absolutely. Like keeping track of my power, keeping track of my distances on the range 3, because Apocalypse is range 3 too, so he could move like sideways to only get within one of the 3 tricks and traps instead of hitting
Mm,
all of them.
mm,
Um, but yeah, it's really hard to navigate if you're not expecting it, and
yeah.
not to mention if you're range 2. If all your attacks are close range, then it's even worse, right? Um, Second game, I played a new fella. He was on Avengers. That was the 25 threat that I talked about. Fun game, wacky. Um, didn't nothing too out of the ordinary other than the things I explained already. The Hydra generator trick, um, but pretty standard match there. And then my final match with um, Matt Matt Bateman. He was taking Mephisto. We played 14 threat, which I've never played before. Um,
Oh, really?
yeah, we played 14 threat, and
That's that's interesting because like you've played more games than probably Ian and I put together, and
Everyone around here.
yeah, and you weren't around for 14.
no, I started in March.
Yeah, that's
Um,
crazy.
Ian always gives me shit for that. Um,
I mean, as he should.
yeah,
Old
absolutely.
man yelling at clouds kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely that vibe. Um, yeah, it's kind of he took he went forward wide with Mephisto, Blob, Crystal, and Baron Mordo, and I went four wide with Goblin, Electro, Heimdall, and Mysterio. Um, that one again, we just saw the same kind of thing happen where we played sword base and we played legacy. Um, and Mephisto, 3 wounds left, does his what is it? How can I be of service? Where he places himself, and then 2 tricks and traps to get those last 3 wounds, and he handed me an extract. It was pretty. There's a lot of new characters that do a lot of places and movements that the tricks are advantage like taking advantage of. Um, well, what about you, Ian? How did your tournament experience go? You want to go over some of your
Yeah,
games? Tell us about
yeah,
your.
it was fun. Yeah, first opponent was Brian. Brian and I are always destined to play each other if we're at the same tournament. He was doing criminals. I think he just recently picked up criminals. Both of us didn't have anything like too crazy or too memey. It was just like, yep, Kingpin leadership, and I'm doing uh, Brotherhood. So that one was Cosmic, so D shape, secure, and then it was Senators as well too. So like 10 points on the board. So I ran Mystique, he ran
Okay.
Kingpin, but that was the same board where you did your 25. We did 24.
Oh wow,
Um, so, but that
24
was
threat
also
Mystique.
yeah, yeah. No, it was so. What did I have? Is like Mystique, Toad, Pyro, Rogue, Jugs, and Rhino. I think was it. Oh, and
Okay.
Quicksilver. So it's fairly wide, and he brought. It's kind of weird at that threat. Kingpin on D isn't great, but it's kind of funny. It's like, well, who cares if you've already got the bodies to be places? If Kingpin's leadership's just like, every a single extra body is like
Yeah.
that much more impactful. It's kind of funny where he can just actually do nothing, and his leadership just kind of is terrifying.
Yeah.
Um, and so he brought his Rhino. He brought Elektra with grunts. He got Bullseye, Kingpin, Black Cat, and he actually brought Eye Hulk, which is kind of he kind of looked back, and if he brought Taskmaster and Modoc instead of Eye Hulk just for more bodies, probably better. And the general flow of that game was like his Rhino. I did 5 damage to his Rhino. I think I told you too. This was the tricks and trap or the trick or treat ones.
Yeah.
So his Rhino took 5 damage off my first turn. He has pretty good spike. He wasn't feeling so good, but he had priority. Rhino's clapped back. He threw a nice 3. which blew up through candy everywhere. He then attacked my Pyro and dazed him. Was able to pick up 2 of the candies, so healed him for 2 there. And then he stampeded into my Rhino, picked up another candy, and then one-shot my Rhino from full health.
Oh
Like
my
super,
gosh,
super swingy
that's crazy.
over there. But kind of wild. So yeah, so he dazed 2 of my characters that were fully healthy and healed up 3 of his 5 damage. Like, jeez. So
That
those
sounds
one-shots
like
are kind of nutty.
pretty normal dice, huh? Like nothing eventful.
We haven't gotten to the Ian
Nothing.
Saul corner yet. Hold on, Dustin.
No. Nope. Well, I think I was in a pretty good spirits at that point. But anyhow, so that was one side, and the other notable stuff was basically like I had 2 size 4s with Rhino and Juggernaut, and he had Eye Hulk. But I basically scared off my Jugs and Rogue at first, and then Rogue took off. And it was just kind of Hulking versus my Jugs, but my guy was just tough enough to kind of not care, and eventually just ran away. So unfortunately, like Kingpin and I Hulk ended up just kind of sitting on 2 of the secures, but not doing too much else.
Mm.
And I just had a lot of bodies to grab secures. So that was the general gist of that game. The second game I played Alan. So Alan was running Mephisto as well too,
With
and
those
Mephisto.
beautiful models.
Alan. Yeah, well, and so yeah, he wrote some really cool stuff. He did a custom 3D prints, and they were all painted. Where his Mephisto was Jack Skellington, his no, his Dracula, I should say, was Jack Skellington. His Mephisto was a Krampus model. He had the Grinch in there. The rest of his team, he actually bought all 3 of the Venoms, so Agent Venom, Gwenum, and regular Venom. And the theme is all just like a zillion clapbacks, plus Agent Venom. That one was interesting. So that one was meteors and scrolls. So kind of fighting, and I had Prio. The basic theme of that game was it was pretty bloody, but I ended up being able to do Asteroid M turn 1 after he hurt my Juggernaut, and Magneto went into his Dracula, which I think I told you I was scared. For some reason, I thought Dracula could like swing back multiple times,
No.
and it's interesting when you do have like him versus, let's say, bigger health pool characters. Whereas Magneto, I'm like, well, I'll just kind of sucks, but if I just trade, I count that as a win, and I can eat one big attack if everything goes wrong, and still do a lot of damage to Dracula. And that's kind of what happened. My dice were okay, but really is like just the throws kind of getting through Dracula eventually.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Dracula's clapback would be a big deal for the displacement of Magneto if you didn't just get to ignore it, right?
Well, and I think that same turn, I don't think I dazed him, but I did. I think I got left him on 2. He did a clapback to heal himself, but then Jugs out of activation did Do You Know Who I Am? Just threw him out into outer space, so his next turn would suck. Um, so
I
that
love
was,
that tactic card.
yeah, it's so good.
It is really good. I love that it doesn't have to be on his activation too. You can really catch
Yeah.
people off guard.
Yep. But otherwise, it was a big clump where he had Mephisto surrounded by like Dracula, Agent Venom, and Venom, and trying to like deal with that. It's basically just kind of see if my dice can go through and target priority can go through, because my other models were like I had Scarlet Witch in there and Quicksilver and Pyro, as well as Jugs.
Did you take your
So
difficult
I
to
think we
please
had
that
some
game?
added threat. What's up?
Did you take your difficult to please that game?
I did.
Okay.
Didn't go off. It
Oh,
basically
okay.
what ended up happening is Magneto did a ton of damage to his entire team and ended up dying. I think it might have been the same turn that I took his Dracula out. But at that point, there was a turn where I had dazed or killed like 3 characters, which was pretty big. And that was the turn Megs died, but kind of worth it. And Scarlet Witch just kind of hung around and killed everything else once
Yeah.
Dracula was out.
I think the toughest part of difficult to please is Quicksilver. Like
Yeah,
Scarlet can
well,
daze
I mean,
whenever, but
yeah, and so whenever I'm doing Brotherhood lately, it's like so it's either a zillion extracts that he can usually interact with something, or it's pay to flips, so he can at least have that option if I get my secures. Um, but yeah, it's tricky. I could have done it. I think actually no. I had one turn. It was just like that was a turn that Mags dazed for the first time. But otherwise, I had a turn where I did a pay to flip and Scarlet Witch dazed. I think it was Venom or something, or Dracula. Anywho, but that was that game. It was pretty bloody. So that was that one, and then my last game was versus Jason, and that was in the finals, and he brought his X-Men. That one was Mutant Madmen, and I think it was Scrolls. Was it Scrolls? No, Hammers. That's what it was. The two lanes, it was like initially my Rhino and Mystique versus his Cable and Gambit, and then the other lane was his Rogue and Storm versus my Rogue and Quicksilver, and both of us had I had in the middle my Jugs, and he had in the middle his Nightcrawler. But
Rogue on
it was
Rogue
a
is
bit of
not
a
something you usually see.
Rogue re-Rogue. Yeah, I mean it's funny because I think he and I both really like her a lot. Probably more than I'd say maybe most around here, but um,
Or anywhere.
yeah.
Well,
But
you guys know my rogue theory, but
Yeah, what
since
is it?
people might not have heard it if they're listening in, I think rogue is the benchmark for a 4 threat. Like, if you are better than rogue, you're a good 4 threat. If you're worse
I
than
think
rogue, you're a bad 4 threat.
now I think she has been extremely overtaken in the past year.
But
When you look at stuff like Shang-Chi's, but if it's an ideal, then probably sure.
I'm not saying like she's hyper powered. What I'm saying is like she is the lowest that I would consider a good 4 threat. And I think
That's
she's still
probably a good
good.
way to put it.
I think she's still good. So, it's more about like, yes, Shang-Chi is probably better than Rogue. But, if a 4 threat comes out like Gwenom, is Gwenom better than Rogue?
Yes.
Is Gwenom a good
Yeah.
4 threat?
Yes.
Yeah.
Both of those, yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But well, in Rogue, I think I ran Rogue in all the games except for and the other two other than the Mephisto game. And she was in part. She didn't really connect super well with all of her attacks. It was like her going out versus Black Cat. It took her a while to daze her, but the big thing was just mutant absorption and sapping, where Black Cat couldn't do anything.
Yeah, that's a
So,
good point.
that's that kind of stuff. That was fine. But yeah, in that game versus Jason, I guess the highlights were like there are two lanes, kind of abandoned one. His Nightcrawler and my Juggernaut both went to the same side. So there's a lot of action on the rogue and on the rogue side, and then on the other side is like my Rhino versus Cable, just getting annihilated. But kind of point parity. His Gambit used a car to drive across to join the other side too, so that was kind of fun. And then my Mystique quickly the turn after used the same car to do the very similar thing. So lots of cars. But what else went on? I mean, it was kind of just really bloody on that side. His Nightcrawler was holding a hammer, my Jugs was holding a hammer, and he did a bit of early damage to my Quicksilver, leaving him on turn one. I ran away and tried to escape, which got away from Rogue just fine. But holy cow, Nightcrawler just blitzed across the board and managed to take him out.
Yeah,
Get
that's
two
what he
hammers
does.
on him, which just scared the bejesus out of me. But then I got a spike that I really needed to on Jugs to basically get those two hammers that Nightcrawler was off, and at that point my Jugs had 3 hammers, which is just kind of scary. So that's kind of the gist of how it went. That one was pretty bloody too. But it was a good one. That was another one where it seemed to be very high point scoring too. 8 points, yeah, the pay to flips. So there were a couple ones where basically if his dice connected when they needed to, he had a beam from Gambit that actually was kind of scary. That could have taken out Jugs and stolen all my points.
I think he was talking about that. You use sacrifice, right?
Yeah. And then, so he used sacrifice for that. And I'm trying to remember, there was one other one. There are a couple that I need to absolutely connect to. So there's a lot of that. There's like a few dice go a different way, and all of a sudden he's got Nightcrawler holding 3x tracks and just teleporting to the moon, and I lose. So, and Jason's been getting a lot of practice and is pretty good with those X-Men too. So, and he runs Gambit, so more power to him. So, but yeah, and that's kind of how that one. It was a fun time. A lot of the one shots getting used. Even if the one with Mephisto, that was with a stealth and a no stealth.
Yeah.
One shots.
Yeah.
But it was funny with Magneto and all the other people on the board started destroying all those terrain features that got rid of stealth. So
That's true. That's a good
it
point.
actually kind of came up once.
Um, yeah. So it was really fun. I had a good time. Dustin, you missed out, buddy.
I
It was
know.
great.
I love one shots, and it sounds like a super fun tournament. My main question that comes up in my mind is there anything that you guys played either with or against where you're like, man, this should maybe be a competitive thing, or like it's worth further testing in a serious list.
Oh my gosh. My tricks and traps list, 100%. After playing it multiple times, even though like I don't count my game versus the new fella and 25 threat, can't really quantify that. But my first game against Michael and my last game against Matt, it is so valuable to just put the pressure on your opponent to make the incorrect decision. And I, never really thought deep into just throwing all the tricks and traps in a corner.
Now, if you did keep it, how much fat would you trim? Like, I know you threw Heimdall in there because he does that kind of stuff, but do you think he'd survive if you're trying to actually make it competitive?
I think Heimdall did great. I don't think he comes out. I think he's actually a good character in that because he's one of the few that has a trick or trap that says ends a movement. So, Venom's pull or is a movement. So if Venom pulls him into Heimdall, Heimdall gets a strike. And Heimdall can use his own re-rolls on himself. So he's got 5 dice potentially re-rolling two.
Would you keep it all tricks or traps, or would you like trim it down to maybe like 6 or 7 characters that have tricks and traps, and then uh 4 or 5 for or 3 or 4 for synergy?
The only thing that I'm missing in the list currently is like because I took all tricks and traps is a kaiju. There's no kaiju that has a trick or trap that I could find. There's not really a clapback on a 6 or 7 throw except for like Thor 2, and it's only when you're attacking him, right? I'm talking about like interacting with another person's movement. There's not really anything out there at the moment.
How about like a hunter character? Because I know that most of them are reactive and almost defensive kind of stuff. But what if someone like a Webbs just gets a point advantage and is just running away?
100% Electro. He does it all. He chased Toad. He just turn two. He usually has enough power. I mean, he's guaranteeing he has enough power to do his ride the wire. And if you position correctly, there's no terrain piece that Toad can get away from that's going to be range 4 from the other side of a terrain piece. He is the spider's foe's chase for sure. And I mean, me taking Goblin as my leader with the tricks and crabs, he's also a good chaser with his hit
I guess
die.
that's true. Yeah,
Um,
Goblin's not the worst for that kind of role.
yeah, I'm excited to try it into more competitive stuff and see where the actual faults are, because I've only played 4 games of it now. It just did well enough that I would actually consider doing something with it.
Mm. Ian, how about you?
I mean, this is a pretty typical Brotherhood list for me. Like my only
So like,
splashes were Luke. Hmm?
did you see anything where you're like, wow,
Oh,
that's an interesting
um,
thought process?
I mean, Alan's Mephisto list. I mean, it's a Mephisto list with a zillion clapbacks. Um, so it's not like the craziest thing to understand. I think it's already kind of like just makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know if you'd see it everywhere, but I feel like if you want to play Mephisto, that's probably the way to do it.
Okay.
Although I guess I should take it back. Kept mixing it up. He was actually a Dracula leadership. Just that Mephisto being Mephisto, you can kind of
Told it
impact
so.
everything. Yeah.
Do you felt like Mephisto outshined Dracula in Dracula's own leadership?
No, but it was more of like I think the only reason why was because there was only one extract he could hold. Because the way I killed him was either throwing stuff at him or chip damage from like jugs pushing into him, and then otherwise it was ignoring him. And his dice were also cold, like pretty
Gotcha.
darn cold. He did the whole up the ante where I took like less damage and he gets more stuff, and so eventually he had like a beam that did 10 dice on each attack, but just like flopped. So
That's rough.
compared to like Dracula, and maybe it has to do with what Dracula's up against. So maybe Magneto, if Magneto can get the jump on Dracula, can actually like push him down, and that. But I don't know, Mephisto. I don't know. I haven't played against him enough, but at least in our game, um, and even when I was playing against your Dracula team, I felt like Magneto had an okay matchup versus Dracula.
Yeah, it's real
So
rough because ultimately Dracula defensively either wants to be in range 2 to get his heal to try and kind of like an instant recovery esque play where he heals himself back up by hitting you a little bit and then you probably can't do enough damage to daze him. Or he wants to, you spiked on him with the first attack and he wants to use his spender to then throw you away. Magneto can just use his force projection to ignore the throws, so he's staying right where he's at. And Mystic attacks into Magneto, not
right,
not that great.
yeah. So I think there might have been, and also Alan was also very tired, and just as far as like remembering leaderships, I don't know if we actually remembered Dracula's leadership, unfortunately. Like maybe a couple times at the beginning,
Okay.
but and there might not have been a crazy amount of targets for them to use that on, um, but yeah, if Alan isn't super tired, um, Alan's very good at running that kind of stuff. So maybe.
He definitely finds the niches and exploits them
And the
pretty well.
nephews.
I didn't say nieces.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
I got you though.
All
It
right.
counts.
All right. Let's quickly go over this Christmas at the Crux event that happened simultaneously with ours. And honestly, looking at the event itself, I'm gonna read off like the top 5 here. Uh, Ryan actually placed 7th with his Wakanda list. He said he was gonna jam Thor 2 into every match. I'm assuming that he did. Uh, but this does not look like a 2024 tournament at all. Listen to the top 3 or even top 5 here. We've got Tetsuo on Avengers with both Sam and Steve in it. Pretty typical. He's got She-Hulk in there too. That's abnormal. He's got Red Guardian even in there. Interesting. And then we got second place as Guardians. We got third place as Defenders. Fourth place is Criminal Syndicate, and fifth place is Inhumans. There is no Asgard in the whole tournament, nor is there a Cabal in the whole tournament. I find that just shocking, to be honest.
I'm curious how much of it has to do with it not being an LVOQ, the locals, and I think a lot of us are on the same page when it comes to fun and just in general what we like about MCT.
But I mean, it's a
Um,
rated tournament. There was a buy-in and I'm assuming prizes. Like I would expect, a good 50% of the group to be tryhards
Um,
or
so
sweaty, at
I
least.
think that also, like, Ian brought up some good points, like knowing the store, like all the locals, the Terracrux crew is not super focused on competitive play, which is totally fine. I think most people in our group also aren't, but like I know up there they have a core of people and they're all just kind of like self-policing. Like I don't think people play the meta stuff in that store intentionally. Um, and then like I think that it's a small enough group to where we're all kind of tired of playing Asgard and Cabal. Like they show up all the time, and so like even if it is rated, like do you want to be the guy that's showing up with Asgard?
I mean, if it makes you win, do you make that decision, right? Like some people like Tetsuo winning with Avengers. That's pretty surprising. That's it's obviously Steve 1 and Sam, so like they still have a good win rate, but they definitely get shut down by a Thor too.
yeah, I mean, I think that, like you said it though, it's what's there. If it, I mean, that was a
Yeah, no,
very good
the
team and always
reason
has
that
been. It's just
he's
other stuff's
up,
gotten better.
there's nothing else there to compete with. There's one Webs player and it bottom of the list, 12th. 0 and 3. So I'm not expecting that Webs player was either very experienced or just maybe didn't bring the right things or something. Um, but
I think Webbs is a tough time right now,
but
in my
there's no
opinion.
lists here that are even showing off the current meta.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. Like this is almost like we went back to 2023 before I started playing because there's no affiliation here that's been released this year in this tournament.
Mm.
That's crazy. It's just wild to me. All right.
Turns out people like fun.
Yeah, who would have guessed that? Oh, the top character in the tournament is Zemo. The second one being Namor.
No,
So I mean,
no, not
eh,
quite so fun, I guess.
yeah, they're still playing stuff. Let's see here. So the other thing I wanted to do is run you two through a quick game. Um, and the premise of the game, I'm gonna give you each of you. I'm gonna go one at a time. I'm gonna give you starting from the bottom of a character sheet, their superpowers, immunities, and if you get it in the first ability, you get 5 points. If you get it in the second ability, you get 3 points. If you get it in the last ability, you get 1 point. And I'm gonna ship you to
Oh, jeez, dude.
I'm gonna ship you to some characters and see who you can get the high score here. You wanna go first, Ian?
Sure.
All right, let's see if you can name
When
this.
do I have to guess, or do I get a guess each
I'll
time?
give you a guess each time. There'll be a
Okay.
spot there. I'm gonna start with let's go with an easy one here. I think. All right. Yeah, this is absolutely an easy one and should start you off pretty well. And I'll give you an easy one as we go here, Dustin. The first ability at the bottom of this character sheet uh, is called Servant to the Sorcerer Supreme.
Yes, it's Wong.
All right, easy, right? Good
Yep.
stuff. You got 5 points. All right, I'm gonna try and do a similarly easy one for you, Dustin. Let's see. Let's
Okay.
see. Let's see if I
Let's see.
can find something easy enough for you. Uh,
Oh wow.
here.
Patronizing.
Well, no,
Keep
no,
it
no.
going.
I meant merely easy
No,
enough.
it's good.
Okay,
Dustin is also very proud of how few models he owns as well,
that's
too, though,
true.
to be fair.
All right, here we go. This
I
should
own a
be
lot of models. I don't play a lot of
this,
models.
this should be a very obvious one for anyone that's played MCP in the last year or so. Uh,
Okay.
the bottom ability of this character is called Plucky Attitude. It's
Oh, that's Star Lord, right?
yeah, it is Starlord. So you
Cool.
each have 5 on the board. Now I'm gonna bump it up a little bit, and I'm gonna go back to you, Ian, and we're gonna see if I can give you one that might stump you or a little bit harder here. All right,
Yep.
so this one starts off, and honestly, you played this affiliation, so maybe it won't be that difficult. The bottom ability of this superhero is called Omega Level Telepath.
Is that Cable?
It is not Cable. The
Okay.
second ability of this character is called Telepathic Lock.
Telepathic Lock?
Yes, Telepathic Lock.
I mean, there's only so many. Emma Frost?
No, sir. This last one will absolutely give
Oh,
it away.
yeah. Then well, in third, that's got to be Jean. So.
Uh, let me read this last one to you before you guess.
Okay.
This
Not Gene.
this last ability is called Professor's Guidance.
Okay. Well then, sure, Dr. Xavier.
Yes, it
Yep.
is, Doctor. You get
I thought
one
telepathic
point.
lock might have been Jean's, like if someone's been like, if they're getting moved, like
Yeah,
the
yeah.
anti-Thanos
Or like
stuff.
super giants like resistance to move or
Right.
whatever. That's it. That would also be
What
one
is
of them.
the lock then?
Uh, Telepathic Lock says this character cannot be pushed or advanced by the effects of mystic attacks or enemy superpowers.
Oh,
So it's just specific to him.
goes to show how much I play Dr. X. All right, so third try then.
Yes, third try. You get 1 point out of this one.
All right.
All right, here we go. Back over to you, Dustin. This one, I'm gonna say this one's medium difficulty here for you.
Okay.
Uh, I'm not gonna count wall crawler because that
Yeah,
doesn't narrow
yeah,
down
good call.
anything for you.
Okay.
I will go with the first superpower this character has is prehensile tongue.
That's Toad,
Oh,
right?
All right, maybe it was too easy.
easy,
My
so
bad,
easy.
Ian. My bad. I'll go hard on him for the
a
last
character with a tongue.
one.
Lizard sticking out his tongue.
He technically is. He absolutely is. All right, you're up to 10, Dustin. Ian's got 6.
Give me the next one. That was too
You want
easy.
to say that one didn't count? All right,
Yeah,
that's
that was too
fair. Too
easy.
easy. Too easy. Okay. All right. Let's go with. Okay. Here we go. How about this one? So the first ability is head of Wakanda R&D.
Oh, that's Shuri.
Oh man,
What'd you do it?
yeah, he definitely got that one right off the bat. I
Give him
did.
something from like Defenders
I
or
mean,
like Inhumans.
I mean, I gave you one that was in your affiliation. I thought that you would get because you play X
Doctor
Men
X
quite a
isn't
bit.
in anyone's affiliation. Yeah,
That's not true. Jason plays him a lot.
that is true.
All right, all right. How about this? You up for one more, Dustin? We'll give you a different
Yeah.
one. All right. Let's do a third one here since those were too easy for you. This one's got to be medium difficulty. I don't think you get this until the second or third trigger here. The first
Okay.
ability is called Possessed by Nasanti.
Possessed by Nisanti. I don't know uh a ton of Marvel, but that sounds like Moon Knight.
That is incorrect. The
Okay.
second ability on the character is called Invisibility Cloak.
Oh,
Invisibility cloak. Possessed by Nisanti. So it's some sort of mage. What the hell? Who is Nisanti?
That's
well,
a good.
invisibility cloak is the big is a
That's a
big
good
one.
one. Yeah, that's a big one.
I don't know if I'm just showing
I
my
don't know
lack
if
of
you
Marvel
you've
knowledge
played
here.
against or with much. It is a kind of corner case character. My
Okay.
first two guesses off the first one were completely wrong. So
Okay.
You wanna take a guess? Just anybody?
I think it's got to be like some of the wizards. Like, what about Leah? I don't know if I've ever played against her.
It is not Kalia.
Okay.
The third and last clue here is called Black Arts.
Black Arts.
Yes. So possessed by Nasanti, invisibility cloak, and Black Arts.
it kind of is weird when you read it out and then think of the character. They
Yeah,
actually kind of
it
don't
makes
match
it
up
kind of
aside from
difficult,
one.
huh?
Okay. I'm gonna ask: are they in convocation?
No, they
No.
are not in
No. Okay.
convocation. I will give you
I'm
that
not,
clue.
not even in the right spot. I don't know. I don't even have a guess for this one, honestly.
All right. This is Hood.
Hood.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
I would not have guessed that.
Yeah, those are weird.
Yeah,
I
that
don't
Weird
think I've
names.
ever seen Hood like in comics or shows or
he's kind of a
anything.
Yeah.
fringe Marvel character. I haven't really heard of him until I started playing the game.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
All right, so we're gonna be 5-6. Ian in the lead by 1 point.
No, I mean split the difference. The man did.
You want to do? You want?
did three.
How about 3? We'll give him 3.
Okay.
So we'll do Ian's at 6. We got Dustin at 8, and we're gonna do one
Is
more
there-
here.
Part of it is just me so proudly stating bullshit. So
All right, we're gonna make this last one difficult.
okay.
I don't think that Ian will get this right off the bat. Let's go with and partially because there are multiple characters that have this ability, as far as I know. The first ability is called I Can Take It.
Oh, I want to say it's a bodyguard, but none of the bodyguards I know of.
This ability is absolutely on more than one character sheet, so this will be difficult.
Huh. I'm weirdly gonna say Crossbones.
All right. Well, there is two of them, so are we talking? You got to be specific.
It'd be Crossbones 1, right?
That is incorrect.
Okay.
The second ability on the character sheet is called aggressive.
Oh wow, super
Yeah.
specific.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely. It's getting
Yeah, but
just as hard.
Crossbones 1 has damage reduction and aggressive. But I think is it Crossbones 2?
That is correct. You get 3
Okay,
points.
cool. I wasn't sure if Crossbones 2 actually still had aggressive or you
So
just gave him hit and run.
yeah, so we've got you up to 9, which means Dustin, you need to score 1 to tie or score 3 to win.
Okay.
We are gonna find you a difficult one.
Okay.
Let's see here. Okay. Also want to get somebody that has a bunch of hard to discern abilities. Oh, this one will be difficult, I think. All right, you ready?
Yeah.
First ability, just like Ian's, a lot of characters have it, stealth.
Ooh. Stealth. I mean, that doesn't narrow it down.
No, it absolutely doesn't narrow much down.
Yeah. Psylocke has stealth, right?
She does.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll just say Psylocke.
It is not Psylocke.
I would have
Okay.
loved it if you just
He just guessed
nailed
it off the rip.
first.
All right,
Yeah,
and,
easy.
and then your second superpower to win the game, the ability called Parting Shot.
Parting shot and stealth.
Think about the characters that have both stealth and Parting Shot.
Yeah.
As very few.
Yeah, I mean, this is again my lack of game knowledge. So I think parting shot has bullseye.
It does, yeah.
Hawkeye.
Hawkeye does not have Parting Shot.
Okay.
He has
Ooh,
Quick
I
Draw.
can't think of only 2 off the top of my head. And neither are that. Neither of them have
I'll
stealth.
say bullseye because I don't know.
All right, to try and win the game, final answer? Bullseye?
Yep.
That is incorrect. The last
Okay.
ability to tie the game or to lose it is called Interrogate. Stealth,
Oh,
Parting
damn.
Shot, Interrogate.
Is this Black Widow 2, the 3 threat?
Absolutely is. You tied the game. Good job, buddy.
Nice.
Hey, I've never seen her on the table.
Nobody has. She's terrible, but she has an interesting mix of abilities that
Well, interrogate's a weird one too. Like, it's really hard to put value on that.
yeah, I mean, you can get 1 point later on in the game, maybe.
I mean, I've won a couple of games off of like
I know you
Spider-Woman
have.
and
Spider-Woman's
but
a pain.
yeah, it's tricky if if Black Widow doesn't have a whole lot else going for her.
Yeah, it's a hard one to. Am I gonna be near a character that's dazed but also not dazed myself?
Yeah, that's usually where I mess it up. Is I leave a character in too vulnerable of a position, and then they just get ripped.
Yeah, absolutely. You have at least a few interrogates and webs since you're playing them now, right?
Yeah. Yeah, but Interrogate was the one that narrowed it down for me. Stealth did nothing.
Yeah, of course.
Parting Shot,
Stealth and Parting Shot is interesting.
Those two together is pretty rare. That's what I thought would narrow it down, but still make it hard because they're kind of.
It turns out just no one knows what the hell Black Widow 2 does.
Yeah, I mean, when you said it, I was trying to think of who the other one was, and I was like, who shoots and runs away and has stealth? And yeah.
Well, I was only thinking of Gambit because Gambit has Parting Shot, and everyone kind of wants him to have stealth and this weird tactic card.
Yeah,
but,
absolutely.
I was like, no.
Okay.
All right. Well, good game. You guys tied it up. A nice first week of that game. So we're getting to the end here, and before we close it out for real, do either of you have anything you'd like to plug before we dip out here?
Nope. I mean, I'm stoked locally. That seems like they've got around 4 new players, which is awesome.
I know, isn't it? It's cool to see that after a while of just like a dry spell. with
Well,
nobody.
and you were the new. You've been the new player for like the past what 10 months, and then turns out you've gotten more games in than any of us in our entire careers combined. So
I have a
doesn't
problem.
quite feel the same.
I have a
Yeah.
problem.
Well, like, I think that one of the things that I love about our community is that we're pretty consistent. Like, overall, we don't really lose too many players. We don't pick up a ton of players anymore. Once we kind of recruited locally, we tapped out the market for a little bit. But with a couple exceptions, our players kind of stick around, and that's pretty nice, honestly, for a smaller game.
Yeah, I agree. It's nice to have like, and I felt it too at the fun tournament that we went to today, and it felt more of like a community gathering than a tournament towards the end there
Yeah,
when we did the white elephant and we did the donations. It felt more like we were just a group of guys getting together.
Yeah, Devin loves getting together with guys.
Yeah, it's like one of my favorite pastimes.
Yeah.
I feel like it was bad like the entire time. I was like, boy, this would be made even better with a drink. It's like, oh, maybe I should watch myself a little bit more. But yeah,
Um,
no, it was a great time.
yeah, it was really fun. I had a lot of fun. All right, guys. Well, this has been the second
Oh, I guess
installment. Oh, you got
shout
something?
out to just shout out to Matt because the dude's a the dude's
Absolutely,
an angel,
Matt.
and
Really, really
shout out
hosting those.
to Alan's paint job for the Jack Skellington themed uh, list that he then turned into his white elephant gift,
Yeah, and your cool best painted model.
which shall go unnamed. Yeah,
That was pretty neat.
Did you do the thing?
I did do the thing.
Yeah, yeah. You should post a picture so he can see
I
that
don't know.
later.
I don't want to.
You don't want to spread it. All right, and yeah, I mean, plug the store Paradox for the Pacific Northwest. Stormbreakers, that's our Longshanks team. Um, you're we're not hyper competitive, but we try to win. And yeah, like I said, second installment of the Stormbreakers forecast. Uh, until next time, keep your eyes on the forecast and may your games always be sunny.